The World Bank yesterday announced its approval of a $700 million credit for its International Development Association for the Nigeria Agroclimatic Resilience in Semi-Arid Landscapes project. The project is expected to increase the implementation of sustainable landscape management practices in northern Nigeria and strengthen the country's long-term enabling environment for integrated climate-resilient landscape management. NXT Grid, a solar mini-grid developer program, has announced it's raised $1.4 million from investors All On and Katapult Climate. All On is an independent Nigerian impact investing company seeded with funding from Shell, while Katapult is an investment company and a foundation. Joining us to discuss further is Fabio De Pascale, who's the CEO and co-founder of NXT Grid. Fabio, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. As far as the capacity of solar mini grids is concerned, and congratulations on your raise, by the way, is this tailored for small homes and businesses with light loads?
Oh, actually, yes, that's probably the typical use, but we do see a lot of value also in, for instance, agricultural processing. It's interesting, the news you just gave a moment ago. There is a lot of value in being able to provide clean energy for agricultural use. I'm thinking of cold rooms or agri-processing, such as milling and other processing of produce on site. To be able to do that with clean energy, with solar grids, it's definitely possible, and something we do already, and brings a lot of value to the communities where we operate.
Great stuff. And what is the biggest challenge facing scaling solar grids across sub-Saharan Africa? Is it cost?
I think financing and cost is definitely one important element. Although we see that that goes hand in hand with quite challenging operations, and we think that you can really put them together by providing smart technologies that simplify the operations, but also reduce the cost and the risk of financing. So smart technologies, and this is something we definitely try to do. Smart technologies actually can unlock financing and can remove both barriers, the technical complexities and the operational complexities, and the financing and the cost side. So the two go in hand, and I think it's very important to tackle them jointly, in fact.
All right, that does make a lot of sense. So is NXT Grid a B2B company? It seems like your focus seems to be off-grid power solutions for other firms.
Yes, NextGrid really works with local companies and also individuals sometimes that want to install a solar mini grid in a community they're close to or that they know very well and they have a relationship with. Our very firm belief is that if we want to scale the uptake of solar energy, and in particular solar mini grids, the only way is to enable local companies and local developers to actually deploy those grids. So we don't think it's our job to be a Pan-African utility. We think it's very important that we provide a reliable infrastructural backbone and a financing platform so that lots of local companies, lots of local developers can deploy and operate easily solar mini grids. So that's really our strive.
All right, great. I've been saying NXT, so it's Next Grid. Thank you for the correction. Africa is still very much a fossil fuel dependent continent. Is in your view, is the climate change narrative thriving on the continent? How do you see it?
I think Africa is not yet on the map, to be honest, in the climate change conversation globally. And part of the reason is that in absolute terms, the quantities in emissions and so forth are relatively limited. But I look at Nigeria specifically as a front runner. I look at Nigeria saying, if we want to see what Africa is going to look like in, say, 10, 15 years from now, look at Nigeria today, where you have almost 80% of the power generation is through, diesel generators. So if you want to know what's going to happen in 15 years, look at Nigeria. And then that is the moment in which you can actually realize, we need to do something about this. We need to stop using generators, and we actually have to find a way to turn all this generation into solar energy and other renewables. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. Nigeria is a perfect place for that because of this being slightly ahead in terms of economic development and entrepreneurship. I think it's also really thriving here, as you surely know.
Of course. So Next Grid, you got the support from All On, from Catapult's accelerator. That's on the private side, right? As far as governments are concerned, the governments in the African nations that you've worked in supporting solar projects, have they done enough to support what, as far as pushing the solar narrative and getting more infrastructure out there? How would you gauge their support?
This is another place where Nigeria really has done something very, very special. I think they have actually put a very clear stance in about 2014-15, and they said, well, we have a problem. We want to do universal energy access, and we know that our grid broadly is not very reliable. We think we need help. We need help from the private sector. We need help from all sort of other players. We can't do this on our own. And luckily for us, I think that is something that was very well received by the World Bank back then. And so World Bank really put a lot of effort, and later the African Development Bank continued that effort and that support. And what this really led to was a new regulation that makes it actually very attractive for private investors and private companies to come and say, we can help, we can do, in our case, solar mini grids, and do that in a profitable way while really supporting the growth in terms of the energy generation and supply for the country. I think other countries are following suit. We know that other countries are working on similar regulatory reforms, and it's a pleasure to see. But it's important to state that how much this goes ahead in other countries really depends on how successful this is in Nigeria. And so we are really trying to be part of that solution and trying to be part of that, primer, something that others can look at and say, yes, this works because it worked in Nigeria. We can replicate it in other places. Let's have similar involvement. Let's have multiple parties, the government, private sector, foundations, NGOs, like all of these should come together to solve this problem because it's a very complex and very broad problem.
Indeed, indeed. So based on that, I mean, I'm glad that Nigeria is like a beacon or an example of encouragement. How would you describe 2021? It's the end of the year, and proliferation of solar grids across Africa based on your operations. Has it been encouraging so far? Or is there more that needs to be done?
It's coming. It's coming. I think we have to realize this is a vast and very broad systemic change. What we welcome is the fact that, in particular, the REA, the Rural Electrification Agency, is doing everything they can to facilitate, the deployment of solar energy in the country. This said, it must be kept in mind, this is something very new for a lot of the players in the sector. I'm thinking of the distribution companies. I'm thinking of, the communities themselves and various people that actually are energy suppliers and energy users. This is new, and so people are getting used to it. But in 2021, I think 2021 really showed the first concrete results in terms of, some signs of growth in the sector. And of course, we're very optimistic of 2022, and we see things are moving. And it's very exciting to be at this moment for the sector. You really feel in the middle of history, in a sense.
Great stuff. Okay, you've mentioned, that was my next question. As far as 2022, is your focus still on Nigeria, or are you going to see more of these investments, I guess, in other African nations? Do you have any other targets?
For us specifically, Nigeria is such an opportunity that we really want to consolidate and focus on this country for the coming 2 or 3 years. That's really our go-to plan today. That's the game plan. We do expect to start moving and expanding to other countries at that point, about 3 years from now. But I think until then, the Nigerian opportunity is so broad and big that it would be nonsensical to just touch and go. We think it's better to just stay and really make sure that we consolidate it here. It's such a fantastic place to be honest.
Great stuff. Finally, I mean, before we came to you, we talked about the World Bank's $700 million initiative for climate resilient, agri land maintenance. Well, what do you make of that move for the World Bank and the credit for Nigeria?
The way I look at this just makes sense in the broader, in the broader perspective. We know that a very important user and a very important contributor in terms of also, climate change effect, but climate change impact is actually going to be agriculture. So you can't really look at one thing like energy and then forget about all the rest. You have to actually look at everything in a complete way, in a overarching way, and then really realize, okay, we are actually trying to tackle climate change as a broader objective. So we need to work on the energy side, and we need to work on the agriculture side. And actually, we also need to see where they touch each other and how we can make it, them work synergically so that we can use clean energy to tackle agricultural challenges, and how those two together actually work towards climate change response. So this is really, it's great news, because it just gives us the comfort that we're not trying to solve one specific issue and forgetting about the rest, but this is actually a broader solution and a broader set of actions and interventions that really help with the problem.
Great stuff. Thank you so much for joining us. Fabio De Pascale, who is the CEO, co-founder of NXT Grid, joining us from Arezzo, Italy. Appreciate your thoughts on all to do with renewables.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.